joined by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We're Stay Hot, presented by our good friend over at Little Caesars Pizza. We're Stay Hot. They're staying ready with their hot and ready pizza all NFL season long. Go get yourself a slice or a whole pie at your nearest Little Caesars. But we've got a lot to talk about today. It's very rare that we get news that breaks before we record the podcast. Usually it's immediately after we record. We've got the Damian Lillard trade. This is huge for the NBA landscape. And then, of course, we have more games from the NFL week 3 to recap, and then we'll preview a couple going in and, of course, give you our Stay Hot locks. Big episode today here at Stay Hot. But, Matt, Theo, before we get into everything, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. It's a victory week for me in the 32-man fantasy league. I beat you, Blaiden.
Did you?
I did you like the Dolphins did the Broncos. I beat you by 50.
Damn.
So
what do you have
how
to
can
say
I be
for
doing
yourself,
bad,
buddy?
I'm not going to lie. I didn't check like any of my fantasy teams this weekend. So
a convenient excuse.
Yeah, excuses are ugly.
You're right.
Dude.
Let me check my team right now while Matt, you tell us how your day is going.
It's going good. I'm excited about the Dame trade. I think it's a lot of fun. There hasn't been any NBA news at all in the last month.
I know this WOJ bomb. I read 3 tweets about this trade before I comprehended what it was. Like, I saw the pictures of Dame, but I wasn't comprehending any of the information these tweets were telling me. I was just looking. I'm like, why is everybody tweeting about Dame? And then like the third Dame tweet I saw, I actually read the caption, and then I made this exact face. And then I saw that Ayton was involved, and then I fell out of my chair. I fell out of my chair when I saw that Ayton was attached to it.
For those who aren't watching on YouTube, Theo gave a surprised emoji face. So you can only imagine the shock. Yeah.
It was very shocking.
Theo did beat me by 50. I started Daniel Jones because Anthony Richardson was out, and everything else is basically just my team being my team. Tyler Algier didn't get the touches this week.
Rico Dottle owned you. I talked about that trade last week. He put up 13.6.
What do you mean he owned me? He got 13 points.
That's like half the amount of points your team.
Man.
But your team only put up 49 total, so 13 would have been like a good
quite the
portion
treat
of
for
that.
you.
You're right.
Your leading scorer was the Browns defense, and only one other player.
Okay,
Rasheed Rice had
the
over
Browns
10.
defense is nice. Like, what do you? The Chiefs defense was what, your third highest scorer, or your third highest scorer behind Brock Purdy and Travis Kelce. It was like career game for Brock Purdy. You're never getting that 25-point performance again.
The Chiefs defense came in that Rico Dottle trade. That was another underrated aspect of it. That I flipped the Falcons defense for the Chiefs defense.
That's
when they
a good
were playing
trade.
the Bears, and got trade. Rico Dottle.
A lot of respect.
We're turning it around. We started 0-2. We're 1-2 now.
Yeah, I'm 0-3.
LCD sound system.
I'm realizing I'm 0-3, but I think I'm doing okay in the Dynasty League, aren't I? I'm 2-1 in the Dynasty
League.
Yeah,
you are doing okay in the Dynasty League. I think you beat me there. So
hey.
Oh wait, no, I'm playing you this week again.
Oh, this is the matchup of the century.
You have a chance for redemption.
I do. I've got Stafford, Dalvin Cook, Zach Moss. Oh God,
I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
Let me start Jerome Ford real quick.
There you go.
Now we're winning. All right. Well, we have to talk about this Dame trade. Just dropped only a couple of hours before we hopped on to record this, and I don't know about you guys, but my immediate thought was this reminded me of when Stafford got traded to the Rams. And that a guy that has not won a title, been loyal, been playing for his hometown team that drafted him. Now he's got a chance to go play for a contender. But if they don't win the title like year one, then it's a bust, right?
Yeah, I think we should talk about this on a team by team basis because there are a lot of teams involved. The Heat are also kind of involved by proxy. I think the Trailblazers are a good place to start. They're the ones with, I don't know, it's them and the Bucks as the main pieces. But let's start with the Trailblazers. They received Drew Holiday. They received a 2029 first round pick, I believe. They received DeAndre Ayton from Phoenix. Those are probably the main pieces. How do you think they did in terms of a return for Dame, Matt?
Not that great. Not that great. It's not terrible. I mean, those Bucks picks in the future have the chance to be pretty good, and they project to be very good. And that's what really matters when
they're in 2029, right?
Yeah.
How do they project to be good or bad?
How good do you think the Bucks are going to be in 2029?
How am I supposed to know?
Well, do they have any of their own draft picks? No, they've got swaps that they'll still have a first from, but they'll almost certainly be later. They're also missing a bunch of their draft picks, and they've got a ton of their money tied up in players who are old. They're still one of the oldest teams in the league, and who will probably either not be playing or not be that good when 2029, 2030, and 2031 comes around. Giannis will be like 35 in 2030, you know? So, I mean, he'll be older than that, maybe. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's going to be pretty old, and I don't know if his game projects to be great at that point. And even if it is, yeah, like sure, maybe we're trying to think far ahead, but they're also not a free agency destination. Most teams really aren't if they're not competing. So the mix of those things makes you feel like, I mean, in the NBA, you're either really good and then, you know, you kind of have your moment and then you fall off pretty hard. Most teams that contend do that. The Bucks are no different, and you would feel pretty confident that they'll have fallen off by the time you get to there. Because this is the last move they're really going to be able to make for a while, you would figure. So, I mean, this versus maybe the more recent picks that you could have gotten from like a Boston or maybe even the Heat, because you feel like they could bring in free agents because they're in Miami, makes them more valuable. Like, yeah, sure, it's way far in the future, but I would look at a Brooklyn Nets trade back when they got Kevin Garnett and say the same logic there would have applied to them, and it worked out great for Boston. So that's good. Then you've got Drew Holiday, who a lot of teams are going to want, and a lot of how good this trade package is comes down to what they get back for him. And as it stands right now, I'm a little nervous that they won't get a huge haul for him. And I'm kind of surprised they did this before they set that up, knowing what they would get back. With Holiday, he's a good player, and he fits on a lot of contending teams, and a lot of contending teams should want him. Really, every contending team. But he costs $37 million. And that really limits your trade options to other contenders because most teams can't match that who are contending without giving up players who are also good and helping them win right now, because contending teams are spending their money on mostly good players. Now, there's some teams, the 76ers possibly could call. The Clippers have money to match that for less important players. And the Heat have Kyle Lowry, who's a 1 year expiring, who I'm sure, you know, it'd be fine to give up. But there's not a ton of options, and I don't know. I think there's very much a world where they only get back a first or two and expirings. And if that's the case, it's a very light package.
Yeah, I agree. I was expecting a little bit more. I feel like the Jazz packages from last year certainly surpassed what Dame got for Lillard. And I would say the Utah packages, or the stars for the Utah packages, weren't quite worth what was given up. Do you think if the Cavs and the Timberwolves could undo the trades, they would?
Probably.
So that probably depressed the market for a star a little bit, and Dame had some weird circumstances with
and he's
the no
older.
trade clause, and he's older, so it makes some sense. Overall, I think that the Portland Trailblazers have to feel happy overall about the direction of the team and the offseason in general.
My thought too.
Even though this trade wasn't some sort of mega deal where they got a potential replacement for Dame, but they already had that on the roster in Scoot Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, what makes you feel good about this if you're a Portland fan. Dame could have retired on the Blazers and you could have gotten nothing for him, and you would have felt okay about their future because they've had so many high picks recently. To trade him for anything when the team was already set up with promising young talent, you have no choice but to be excited as a Trailblazers fan. It wasn't some disaster. They let the Dame cycle play out. And now he's gone. It reminds me a little bit of the Packers, maybe even more than Stafford trading Rodgers at this point. But I think Dame is even better than, like, a better NBA player than Rodgers was an NFL player.
I would agree.
The year before they got traded. So
yeah.
Could they keep Drew Holiday?
They could, but they'd be wrong too. I think it's very much a possibility, but they'd be really, really wrong too.
Yeah, they've got so many young guards that maybe you just let them breathe and don't have a player like Holiday over him, even if you can't get too much for Holiday.
Holiday can fit in anywhere, but it's like, what are you exactly doing with him on the roster? Because he's 33. You know, it's not going to be for that much longer with him. And you know, with him and if you feel like Scoot can be good and Simons and Grant and Ayton, it's like, okay, the starting five is actually like, okay, you know, it's not bad. But like, you got to pick a direction and go it. And keeping Drew on this roster is not picking a direction and going it. It's, well, we're going to kind of have to do both. I would rather take, you know, the future first from the Clippers or first in a pick swap, or same thing with Miami, whatever they could give me. I'd much rather do all of that. So I think they'd be wrong too. It's not a horrible return. We still have to see what they get for Drew. Maybe they'll get way more than I think they will. But, you know, he went for 3 first, you know, 3-4 years ago at this point. Certainly that price has gone down. I mean, he's a great defender. He spaces the floor. He can move the ball. But he's not a reliable option in a playoff game, really. He can do some creation stuff. And if you put him low enough on your totem pole, you feel fine about it. But, you know, you got in the playoffs last year, and it's like Middleton was out. It's like, dude, Holiday was, I mean, just horrible. Just really, really, really bad.
And then there's the Ayton aspect of this. They got rid of Yusuf Nurkic. They got rid of Nasir Little, their backup power forward. So 2 bigs for a bigger big in Ayton. How do you think he fits in here? Do you think the package, like, not that it's the same package, it's the same trade, but is adding him more or less inspiring to you than what they got for Dame? From the Bucks.
I kind of have mixed feelings about that. I mean, Ayton is not a bad center at all. Truly, like, he can play, and he's athletic, and when he's really going and aggressive, it's good stuff. But he's not a good contract, really. He's at best a neutral contract, and if you're planning for him to turn around, I just am not sure if that's the best use of the money would be my thing. Because as a rebuilding team, you can easily use money, even not in free agency, to take on contracts and get draft assets from that. Would you be better off using the draft assets from that? Like, they're in a rebuild. They've got Scoot Henderson for super cheap right now. It's not going to last forever, but at the moment, that's the case for them. Is Ayton the best way they could have gone with that money? I'm not 100% sure. Now, it's not terrible. It's not bad. And maybe just having that, you know, center in there to kind of round out the team a little bit is what you want to do. It'll be a pretty decently well-rounded team for Scoot and Simons and all the young players they've brought in to grow in, and Sharp. Like it's a solid environment that they've built. It's not like the Pistons, who I don't want to rag on too much because I think overall the rebuild's going well, but as it stands right now, it's like that's the least complete team in the NBA because they've made moves for like Wiseman and Stewart, and it's not Stewart, but Bagley and things like that. And it's like it's just a very clunky roster at the moment. The Trailblazers aren't great. They're not going to be a playoff team this year, but they're a little bit more well built, and maybe that's part of it. And maybe they feel like they can't use that cap space effectively, but I maybe would have just sided with not bringing in Ayton.
Yeah, I wonder how the discussions there went. Was it Ayton was the key piece, and like it could have only have been Ayton to get this trade over the top because they did involve a third team? I don't know. Like it's not like they used the money to sign a free agent, like they needed to complete a Dame trade. And so their options were probably more limited. And from that standpoint, I don't know. It's tough to know because we don't know what the other options were on the table.
I guess I'll say this. Nurkic had money left on his deal. Keeping him on the roster really did nothing for you. And I guess that runs the same amount of time. So that makes me feel a lot better about it. For some reason, I thought his contract was closer to being up. It's fine. It's fine that they brought in Ayton. We'll see what he can do. I think the relationship between him and the Suns had really soured over the last season. Like things are pretty rough. But it's interesting. They're an interesting young rebuilding team. They've probably got to continue to draft well, as always. And they really need to trade Drew, and we'll see about that. But as it stands right now, as a Trailblazers fan, you have to feel better about the team now than you have in several of the last years, at least as far as the direction goes. Yeah, they're going to be worse, but like, dude,
you got to get worse before you get better.
Can't do it forever. Yeah. This is the right call. They finally made it, and even though it took them a long time to do it, maybe they cost themselves on the Dame trade somewhat. Getting Scoot Henderson, winning the lottery, and then winning the Hornets didn't take Scoot Henderson lottery on top of that, has really set you up well.
So let's talk about the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any reason that they can't win the finals with Giannis and Dame. Like, I'm racking my brain here. I feel like having that kind of force down low, well, cutting edge analysis here, I know, but having a guard and big duo like that stretches the defense in so many different ways. Like, you cannot turn your attention away from the post when you're playing Giannis. You need guys cheating down. You need as many bodies ready to collapse as basically humanly possible when you're playing a guy like that. And then to add a sharpshooter like Dame, like I just think that all of basketball, or all of sports, and every single sport, is like, how can we divert someone's attention one way and then hit somewhere else? That is kind of every single,
like, they can attack you with a lot more things now.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, and that's tough to deal with. Their half court offense was not good. It's not been good. And in fact, it's never really been that great. Even when they won the championship, how they did it was kind of an outlier. They're fantastic defensively. Bringing in somebody like Dame completely changes that. He's coming off statistically. I know he missed a decent amount of time, and we'll talk about that. But like his best season ever, man. He's at the absolute peak of his game. He is, absolute bomb 3-point threat, absolute crazy playmaker, absolute great, just on ball creator. Getting a guy like that, going from that to Drew Holiday, or going from Drew Holiday to that, is a total game changer. So it's a great trade for them, not only because they were aggressive when they should have been. Like, you don't have that much longer with Giannis, really. You should not look at it as, well, how are we going to compete with Giannis when he's, 32, 33? Dude, who knows what could happen? What you know is that you have a top 20-ish player of all time on your team. That only happens to franchises once every 30, 40 years, if that. And you've done now everything that you can to be competitive. with him while he is still in his prime. That's the right call. And you brought in, and Dame fits what they needed so perfectly. It's not like they just went out and said, well, here's the star player for us we have to get a star player. Here's the guy available.
And they go trade
we're
for
like
Kyrie.
Yeah, it's like we're going to go trade for Kyrie, and we're just going to, although Kyrie, kind of would have.
Kyrie would have fit too, but
also
Dame is more reliable than Kyrie.
Dame is just a way better player than Kyrie.
Yeah.
So it's really a great fit for him. And to be completely honest, I saw all these rumors the Bucks are interested in Dame. I'm like, yeah, that's great, man. What are you going to do? I just didn't think they had the assets to pull it off, and they totally did. They got him for as cheap as possible. So, making that move pretty much guarantees that you will be bad at some point, but who cares? Who cares? It's a great move. A lot of times when teams make these trades for star players where they give up a whole bunch, they're not really in a position where they should be doing that. Most of the time, that's the case. Most of the time, we look back and say, you weren't really close enough to win winning a title for that move to make sense to you. For Milwaukee, it is certainly not true. It fits what they need. They've got some problems still, but I love it. I love it for them, and I'm super excited to watch it.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a fantastic trade. I think the ways that Milwaukee and Phoenix have ran their franchises over the last several years, there are some parallels between them, and I think there are a lot of big differences, but they were in the finals at the same time. They've got the home developed superstar Devin Booker and Giannis. And now in this offseason, after being in the finals in 2021, they've made trades for superstar, MVP candidate, or I guess Dame has never really been MVP candidate or hasn't been in a while.
He has that ceiling though.
He's a superstar.
He's a superstar.
Yeah.
He's a superstar. So, and I feel like the Bucks have always been ahead of the Suns by just a bit. I think that this move makes a bit more sense than the Suns superstar moves, and their homegrown talent has gone better than the Suns homegrown talent has been. And they've just built it out right, I think. And they took the old roster as far as it could go. The Drew Holiday move won them a ring. And this is similar to that as well. They needed a guard to give them just a bit more juice, and it worked before. Now they need a little bit more juice because everybody's just a little older. And now they go make this move. And Drew was old when they traded for him. Dame is old when they traded for him. It doesn't matter how old they are, because Dame had a career high in points per shot attempts, like you mentioned last year, Matt. Did not create many turnovers, did this at a very high usage rate and at a high volume. He was the same Damian Lillard that we have always seen. Maybe he did it in different ways. I'm not smart enough with basketball to know how they deploy him over the course of coaching staffs or whatever. But at any rate, whatever system they run, the results are indiscernible from when he was 24, 25, 26 years old. In fact, they're better. So, yeah, I think we're looking at a conference where the Heat just represented the entire thing. This Bucks team I know they lost to the Heat last year when Giannis was banged up. A fully operational Bucks team pretty easily cruises to the finals in the East, I would say. If this was the situation last year, I think they're better than the Celtics. I just don't know who can match up with the firepower of a top player alongside Damian Lillard. Their stars are better than the Celtics stars, and the Celtics might be deeper, but where has that gotten them? I guess it's gotten them to the finals, but hasn't won them any rings. So who cares?
That's all that matters. The rings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've got some serious concerns still. They're still ancient.
Mm-hmm.
And this is boding poorly for them staying healthy. And that's probably my number one thing, is that all their core players are very, very old now. Giannis is not quite into the very, very old category, but he's not a young guy anymore. And he was, banged up last year, and if that continues, can you get all these guys in the playoffs for a full run?
I'm not too worried
healthy?
about that. He's like 28. Like he should still be in his athletic, like prime, I would say.
Look, but with Dame and Middleton and Lopez, it's like, dude, that's a big ask. You're really rolling the dice here. And the odds, frankly, for you to be the healthiest team of all the contenders, which is a lot of what it comes down to, is against you. I still don't dislike the move or anything, but that's the reality of the situation in the NBA. I think that was also true before you traded Holiday, and you were just a worse version. You're not even a worse version. You're just worse than you are now. But it's still very much a concern. On top of that, I think their depth with Allen gone is now, it's getting there, man. It's getting down there. I mean, how many guys do they have on the roster right now that you really trust to play serious minutes in the playoffs? Maybe 7. And maybe they can go pick somebody up, and maybe Beauchamp steps up or Malik Beasley really takes a step, and that's probably the game plan to replace Allen is Malik Beasley, but the thinness is definitely a problem. And then on top of that, you are losing Holiday's defense. And their on-ball perimeter defense is not going to be as good as it was. It's going to take a huge hit. That's worth it. It's easily worth it. All of this is worth it. But there's still concerns with the Bucks.
Yeah, I agree. And then there's the Suns. I am not a huge fan of this, and it feels like they have torn down the 2021 team incredibly quickly. Devin Booker is the only player from that finals appearance left on the entire
That is crazy.
roster.
I mean, it's like, what? I knew that was true, but I guess I didn't know it,
And even when you go,
doesn't feel right.
No, and even when you go to the beginning of the 2022 season, like before the trade deadline, before the KD trade, the team is drastically different. There is no continuity in Phoenix at all. And there's several glaring holes. Yes, this is a move that bolsters their depth with Grayson Allen and Nasir Little. But to some extent, it's like the depth is going to be bad. It's a penny in a well. Like there's a big void in terms of good defenders and guys who would be starters on other teams coming off the bench for you in the playoffs, because that's, I think, part of it. Like best team is not 1 through 5. It's best 1 through 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 for in the NBA. And I feel like to be the best team, you need some of those guys, like guys that will get signed away to be someone else's starter once their contract runs out. And I just don't know if the Suns still have that kind of depth. And the fact that they were so desperate to get rid of Ayton in that they were willing to assist in Dame going to a contender like the Bucks, to me, is kind of desperate. I feel like just the fact that they were the team that gave this move the green light, and all they got from it was Yusuf Nurkic, like arguably downgraded just to give Ayton off the books. It feels like there is a lot of glitz and a lot of glamour on the Suns, but it's so hastily thrown together. The depth is, I think, a major concern. The defense and the post defense is a totally major concern. It's a new coaching staff. The odds that they hit the ground running is, to me, extremely low. And to me, the odds that they live up to the talent of the big three is pretty low as well. The Stay Hot podcast is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. It is the best fantasy app around. They've got all kinds of different game modes for all kinds of different sports. I'm looking at the app now. I'm looking at my Packers, some of their over-unders versus the Lions tonight. And I'm taking the over on every single person in this game because I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. And if you also want to bet the over on every single prop in the Thursday night matchup, head on over to Underdog Fantasy and use the code STAYHOT. That is all one word, stay hot, and they will double your first deposit up to $100. So if you put in $1, that's $2 that you'll have in your account because they matched it. But if your mind can fathom a higher number than 1, as long as it's below 100, you can put in 50 into the account, and all of a sudden it's 100 into the account. $100, which you can then use to win money or perhaps lose it. That is always a risk when you gamble, but you could win money and then take it out, and then it could be more. It could also be less because it is possible to lose. And I feel like it's responsible to remind people of that. But this ad has gone on almost 90 seconds. So use the Underdog Fantasy app today.
What if you had a big 3 worthy of a championship and nothing else? That will be answered this year by the Phoenix Suns because, yeah, dude, their defense is going to be horrible. You have to project. I mean, Nurkic, what was the Trailblazers' problems all these years? Their interior defense was horrible. Now it's also the perimeter defense, but dude, I mean, it's going to be rough. I still don't think their depth is good. They have a lot of guys where it's like, okay, he's interesting, and like, what can Keita Bates-Diop do, and what can, so on and so on and so on do. But no guys who are like, well, I've seen this guy be a good depth piece in the playoffs. Outside of Allen, Allen's been solid.
Allen was like a good pickup, but like, at what cost? Like you've kind of.
It's 100% a money move. Because keeping Ayton on the books would have cost you hugely, down the line from a luxury tax standpoint, ridiculously expensive to keep him on the roster. And it's cool to say, okay, well, people will talk about the second apron and they'll be like, but see, first off, I don't even think they're kind of staying in the second apron. Second off, even if they do, I think people almost overestimate that from a team building perspective. It actually, like for this Suns team, it actually doesn't like really matter that much. What moves are they going to go make? It's not a second apron move. It's just not that big a deal. It's like, okay, you get your mid-level exception back. That's good. You can trade first-round picks. You hypothetically could, but where are they to trade? You don't have them. You can't really trade them. And even the idea of like, okay, we're gonna get this depth and we're gonna save ourselves a bunch of money. Yeah, well, what happens when Allen hits free agency next year? You saving yourself money then? Because the only way you're saving yourself money is by letting him walk. And I guess maybe the idea is, well, we're going to just let him walk.
And by this point, Kevin Durant is 37 years old, by the way, or whatever he is.
Yeah, or maybe the idea is like, well, we only care about this 1 year, but it's like, dude, the defense you have to completely figure out, the depth you have to completely figure out, and you have to do it just this year, and everybody has to stay healthy. It's like, dude, it's a lot, man. There's still a tier 1 contender in my opinion, but
I don't think they're tier 1. Whatever the Nuggets tier is in, the Suns are not.
Well, the Nuggets are kind of by themselves.
I would say they're not in the same tier as the Bucks now as well. I would pretty comfortably take the Bucks and the Celtics chances over the Suns. They do have a lot of firepower, and Vogel's a defensive-minded coach. Maybe he's like, maybe he has some plan. Maybe he can get them playing really inspired, and defense is a lot effort. Maybe the offensive firepower makes it so they don't even have to expend much energy on offense. They can just get down and score and play really good defense on the back end. And I don't know if that's even how it works, but maybe that is their plan. Like, we can just give 100% effort and score so fast that we can do it. Like, I don't know, but they've got to figure something out. And Vogel has his work cut out for him.
I think to some extent you are your personnel in the NBA, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. And
it's going to be shootouts.
It's going to be shootouts. It's been done before. The Cavs did it. But it's not an easy path. You're looking to be an outlier, and I guess I can't blame them because when new ownership took over the team, this probably still was the play. But it could be rough for the Suns here soon. So I don't really love this move for them.
It's really fascinating. It's really fascinating how so many teams, I think, after going to the finals would try to run it back or keep it together. And for them to go a half a season after making it and say, we don't have the juice with Mikal and Cam and Booker and Chris Paul, like it's just, that was the peak unless we do something drastic. And then to replace literally every single player on the team except for Booker in such a short amount of time. I don't know how I feel about it, because deep down in my heart, I kind of agree with the fact that Bridges and Johnson and running it back and Chris Paul would have gotten old. Like, it wouldn't have resulted in a winning a ring. I kind of agree with that deep down. But just the pure haste and what it has done to the financial situation, to the point where getting rid of Ayton is the best thing for the team, and allowing Dame to go to the Bucks, like, is the only way that to get out of it. Like, you really kind of built yourself into a hell of a corner, and it's an old corner. It's a thin corner. It's new. It's something, which I guess I appreciate, but it's like,
if the Suns don't win a title this year, and I think the odds are against them, that will not have been set in stone by this offseason. This offseason will not be what did them in. Realistically, looking back, they messed up by getting Ayton. That's what didn't win them the title. If you're looking back and trying to judge everything from that standpoint, that's really the move where it's like, okay, they've did about as good as they could. I mean, Booker's great. The Chris Paul trade was smart. Mikal, great job on that. But it's tough, man. And they really don't have Booker. Booker being the number one on the championship team is unproven. And what they had to do to get Kevin Durant kind of took away a lot, even though, he is that sort of 1A guy. So I respect it, but I'm not going to look back and be like, the Suns really screwed up this offseason. They didn't put themselves in a position they weren't already in, to be completely honest. Maybe they delayed things a little bit longer by going and getting Beal, but whatever.
I don't think they messed up this offseason, or I don't think they messed up blowing up the roster, but I do think they put themselves in a position that they could be very bad in a couple of years, whereas they could have just enjoyed, some beloved draft and develop years. And they kind of got rid of those. And I think for that to be worth it, this needs to win a ring. Like, the pressure is high, and you just don't know if you sold out to absolutely beloved players for. You want to feel like you have a good chance. And I guess Booker's been the number one on a team that was up 2-0 in the finals before, know, and Durant has been the number one on several title teams. So, it's not that they don't have the star power, but
it's that they don't have
the
else.
Depth. They don't have anything else. But star power is what matters the most. So
it's funny, it's like, oh, their roster turned over so quickly. I wonder if it happens again. In 3 years, are any of these players going to be on this team? I'm not confident.
No.
It could blow up incredibly quickly. I mean, even if they don't win it this year, you go into the offseason basically saying like, well, it's over, It's like, we can't really do anything now. But I stand by the fact that it's not this offseason that did them in, and really that's how most teams not winning a title but getting close goes.
They missed on Luka and Trey.
Yeah.
Oops. Don't want to miss on Luka and Trey for Ayton, unfortunately, and then pay Ayton. And then
me personally, I would have just drafted Ice Trey.
And then the next team, maybe we can touch on briefly, would be the Miami Heat. They did not get Dame. They did not get anybody. They are running it back. Where would you say? Let's divvy it up. What is the chance that they are in the finals again? What are the chances that they are in the playoffs again? And what are the chances that they miss the playoffs entirely? Like, rank the three options, like most to least likely, perhaps.
Most to least. They'll make the playoffs. They won't make the finals, would be my guess. I mean, it was a hell of a run, but a lot of shooting luck. And the Bucks got banged up, and they went to 7 with the Celtics, and that could have gone either way. I mean, they could. They're always a sneaky contender, but they could have a tough regular season and be a first-round exit too. I'm not going to predict that to happen again, to be completely honest with you. And as far as winning the finals goes, it just feels like you've been there, you've done that. It's like, dude, they're one of the rare teams that get in this position and don't go make the final move. Maybe it'll be Drew Holiday, but even that, it's like, oh man, they probably could have beaten this Dame offer. And they probably could have. If they really wanted to, they probably could have beaten this Dame offer. And I wonder how hard it would have been. I really, really wonder how hard it would have been. So I'll rank it as, they're making the playoffs, but I don't think they're winning the finals. I don't think they're making the finals again. I don't think they should be the favorites.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of a death knell for the Heat, the second act of the Heat dynasty, like the act after LeBron, the Jimmy Butler era, ever winning a ring. I just don't see any kind of path. Maybe the team, like they've got some young pieces that could potentially take a step. They were very banged up last year as well.
Yeah.
And they still did a good job. They won the East despite all of that. So they're still dangerous, and they're always more dangerous than they look on paper. But
I get it, because they trust their drafting so well and their development so well that they're like, well, we don't want to put ourselves in a position of just tanking for years, because if we draft like we do and we're Miami and we can bring in free agents, we're actually costing ourselves if we do that. Like, we could be good then in a way that, and again, no offense, because most teams are like this, Milwaukee can't. Like, most teams are not drafting and developing and having Eric Spoelstra and being in Miami. Most teams are not that. They are.
Yeah.
And I think they're willing to make a move, but they just don't want it to be, well, we're selling the entire future. And that's what a Dame deal would have been.
Yeah.
But man.
Yeah, and that makes sense to some extent. Because they're right. Like, they probably, even if Jimmy Butler were to leave and they were to like build a new finals core, like they probably could get it done. Like, based on everything that we've seen from the Heat, like they probably would figure out a way. So maybe when the Bucks are struggling, like the Heat can be better, like in a couple short years. But it's a tough pill to swallow when you're so close for so many times and you just never really have any sort of hope at that last push, that last hill to get over. And they never made that move. And history will remember this, is I guess my only
history will remember. It's funny.
But that's all I've got to say about the trade, I think.
Yeah. Fair enough. Do you want to talk about some NFL football?
Let's talk about some football.
Let's do it.
All right. Time for me to lock in. I let Matt and Theo have their NBA moment.
I appreciate it. It's been a minute since we had an NBA.
I know. Yeah, we don't really get to it. And as soon as I saw that drop, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go like 25, 30 minutes without talking today.
That's the way it goes.
But no, that's how it is sometimes. But we want to recap some of the games that we missed from Sunday. And I think the way we set this up is we each kind of took a look at kind of the state of a team, like a state of the union type deal. But we each kind of took on a team. Theo, you had the Baltimore Ravens in their loss to the Indianapolis Colts. Your question was, what in the world went wrong? Because by all means, they should have won that game. They were the more talented team going in. The Colts were without Anthony Richardson. So tell us, what happened? Make Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday. And get ready for some football and some fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
Yeah, so the Ravens have the injury bug, which is not shocking considering how they've built this roster out and the games missed by basically every single star on this team over the past several seasons. Odell was hurt. Bateman was banged up. They don't have J.K. Dobbins already. And they've got Zay Flowers, who is a fantastic weapon, but they kind of pigeonholed him this week, and they were trying to get him the ball quickly on the move, trying to press the easy button of Zay do something sick after the catch, and he was never really able to spring it. The Colts have really good linebackers. They were able to kind of put a stop to the underneath stuff with Zay, and that being their main source of offense wasn't working, and it was just kind of a frustrating day all around. And as long as their wide receivers are banged up, that'll be the case. They still don't quite have that number one guy, that true number one who is beating all kinds of coverages down the field and making contested catches, like really well-rounded guy that can give you consistent offense day in and day out. That's always available. That's always healthy.
Yeah.
They're kind of a committee approach where, Odell is in a certain role, and Zay Flowers is in a certain role, and Rashad Bateman is in a certain role. And like together, they all kind of fill everything you would need. But once any of them get out, it's rough. And that's kind of is easy for one wide receiver to get banged up. And that's why it's nice when they're all in one thing. And I think that's the main problem with the Ravens still, is like Lamar is amazing. He's got a good supporting cast at this point. They're certainly capable of winning a ring, but there's no one else on this offense that's as good as Lamar. And that is what the other contenders have. Like Diggs is as good as Allen is. Kelsey is as good as Mahomes. Well, like we can nitpick, but like Kelsey is another elite tier 1 weapon. Jamar Chase is an elite tier 1 weapon for Joe Burrow. Like maybe Mark Andrews is this, and they've still got him, but I don't think that this offense has another player as good as Lamar. And I think that's when they're this injury prone can cause kind of sloppy performances. And that's what this was. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Shane Steichen is a great play caller. Gardner Minshew, I don't think had a good performance, but they're still able to put 20 plus points on the board versus a good defense. Their kicker was absolutely money.
Oh my God.
Which made it easy to win this game. Like they got 12 points from 50 plus yard field goals on a day where the Ravens offense wasn't really performing well. To get those 12 points on drives that didn't have to go very long, it was huge. So kind of a messy performance from both sides. The Ravens defense is good, but not overwhelming. And it's really the same deal with their offense. And it was kind of a humbling game when it looked like everything was going their way in this division.
Yeah. I think that Zay Flowers has the potential to be that like true number one elite guy, but
he's just a bit small.
Yeah,
he's kind of a hard target to hit down the field, when you get in these situations. He's a rookie too. He's playing in his third ever NFL game. So the nuances of like, oh, I'm going to settle down here. I'm going to run this choice route just how Lamar likes it. Like we're seeing the same things. Like that is what Diggs has, and that's what Allen has, and that's what Chase has for Burrow. Like that connection. And with this, it's tough to have him running down the field and being open all the time for Lamar. Instead, he is kind of a gadgety guy still, although he has made big plays down the field. I agree. Maybe someday he can be a Steve Smith or a Tyreek Hill. Maybe not as good as those guys, but in that mold, I think he has it in him. But for his third game in the league,
it took even like Devontae Smith, who was like Heisman winner wide receiver, like great wide receiver prospect. He wasn't putting up.
Oh, and those two guys you just mentioned, Steve Smith and Tyreek Hill, they weren't elite receivers out of the gate at all.
Hey.
No, it takes time. And they asked like Zay Jones, go win us a game by catching 5-yard passes. I don't know. I think that this was a game against the Colts with a backup. Perhaps there was a bit too much of a focus on like, just take care of the ball, just go underneath. Maybe there wasn't enough open up the offense and really kill these guys.
Yeah.
And you should always maybe have a little bit of that when you've got Lamar Jackson. And this was a bit too conservative, I felt like. But given the opponent, they probably thought they could be conservative and still win. But unfortunately, the kicker had the greatest day in kicking history.
Yeah, a kicker in a Ravens game had a great game, and it wasn't Justin Tucker.
And this is the interesting thing. They still almost won that game, but it came down to
a 60-plus yard Justin Tucker game.
It came down to an 80-yard field goal.
I saw Prater hit a 60-yarder to a big 60-yarder.
I think this is interesting because whenever you bring up Tucker, then the whole Tucker debate, which we won't get back into, but it's always like, well, he's like automatic from 60. He's like automatic from 60. And then every time he misses those 60-yard field goals, it's like, well, that's from 60. You can't expect him to make
the Tucker agenda has not quite. He hasn't been at his best since I ranked him so high in that ranking. And honestly, at the time, I still think it was valid to rank him that high. I think Tucker still is one of the top. I think he still is one of the top players in the NFL, especially then. But I feel like he hasn't quite been quite as money from 60-plus yards. I should have had Daniel Carlson on the list.
Yeah.
I think I did have him on the list. I think I just had him at like 60 or 70.
I remember you snuck him on at the last.
He was
second.
there.
I don't care
After like Matt was like,
what are we talking about? He was on there.
And then we talked about whether or not AJ Cole is a top 100 player or if like a long snapper.
What are we doing, man?
That's what we were talking about.
Look. Carlson's been elite since that list has been made, and he was elite the year before, and he didn't get any respect for it. And now he finally gets a first-team All-Pro like he deserved. I don't want to get into this, but yes, Tucker is bad.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, let's talk about Anders Carlson, 3 for 3 kicking field goals, 9 for 9 extra point.
They're sleeping on him, I'll give you that.
The Carlson family is elite, but when will we have the discussion about Anders Carlson is what I'm wondering.
Next time Tucker misses, I'm like, we're going to have a conversation about Justin Tucker.
I will be willing to have the Anders Carlson versus Justin Tucker debate.
See, what people don't realize is that tweet on the Stay Hot Twitter with just referencing my top 100 where Justin Tucker's at 6. I sent that tweet. Everyone thought Matt sent that tweet.
Yeah, everybody did think I sent that. I thought it was Theo.
No, it was me.
I didn't I didn't even see that tweet, but
it got almost 1,000 likes. So
bang.
And that's bang. I'll make fun of myself for 1,000 likes. I don't care. But Matt, you were taking a look at the Atlanta Falcons. This offense is supposed to be...
He's going to have to say a bad thing about a Bearcat. I can see it in his body language.
This offense is supposed to be generational, and yet something tells me they're being held back.
How did they score 6 points? How did they score 6 points?
Well, it's on Ritter, like almost entirely. I like the whole idea of the Falcons offense pretty well, which is like we're going to be really tricky in the run game. We got a lot of misdirection stuff in there. We're pulling guys, we're bringing guys, like we're doing all sorts of stuff, right? Like you guys know that. Mm-hmm. And then when you commit super hardcore to stopping the run, like you need to, like we've got all these ways to try to like steal a gap and get somebody going the wrong way and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if you just try to match up with us one-on-one, we like our odds against you because we have a great offensive line. We've got a great running back. We've got a great scheme. Now you can bring an extra guy into the box, but then when you do that, we've got Kyle Pitts, we've got Drake London, and even to some extent, I think the reason why they have Mac Hollins is for the sake of like he's this big body matchup nightmare, and we're just going to get and attack you, and we're going to beat you on those matchups. And hypothetically, that should work against the Detroit Lions. And then hitting you with the play action and hitting something downfield and just saying, well, Pitts go up and get it, and we just kind of need, not that much out of the quarterback.
Put it in their vicinity. Works. Yeah.
Right. The problem is, number one, is that the Lions at no point ever were like, oh, well, let's go cover 2 and we're going to have 2 safeties back and we're not going to let you pass and we'll go one-on-one again. No, they immediately had numbers in the box. They had numbers in the box in every single run situation the entire game. The Falcons never had numbers. And when they did try to counter that with the one-on-ones, the balls aren't well placed. They're not. And all of a sudden it's like, even when you get the matchup, even when you get the Drake London on whoever. You can't really exploit that if the ball isn't put where it's need to be. But that's not, alerting into something and throwing it, which Ritter is really willing to do. He's willing to try it. And I don't think every throw is totally on him, but a lot of the downfield stuff doesn't connect. And to be completely honest, I have reason to believe that it's more on him than London and Pitts from what I saw. But on top of that, when you try to run play action stuff or you try to just sit back and take regular dropbacks, there's no aggressiveness from Ritter. He is not willing to anticipate or throw into tight windows whatsoever. The Next Gen Stats has like an aggressiveness percentage stat. Ritter is like bottom 5. And to be completely honest, I would bet you, I'm not 100% sure how the stat works, to be completely honest, but I would bet you that the only reason why he isn't lower is because there's so much of it is just like alerting into somebody who is covered, who's a big body, just to go up and get it. Like that's probably the only real aggressive plays he made. He had one throw into a window, which was completed. He had one. I mean, he never ever tests them. And it totally kills the Falcons if he's not able to do that a little bit. The Falcons' whole mindset is we're going to run a lot and then keep you honest with the pass game, as opposed to like how you would usually think of it as like we're going to throw a lot and then keep you honest with the run game. And Ritter can't keep anybody honest. He can't. And when it comes down to just dropping back and reading the field and making the throw, it's just not there at all. And it's crazy because he did that at Cincinnati. He didn't have great receivers. It wasn't like that. He threw with anticipation into windows all the time. And it's like that has totally been sapped from him entirely. And there's just only so much you can do if he's not hitting those throws.
I wonder how much of that is like chemistry, like just him like knowing Alec Pierce and Trey Tucker and those guys. Like,
well, he's been there 2 years. You got to get some chemistry.
Right. It's like you should be on the same page with Drake London.
But throwing with anticipation into zone, I don't think has anything to do with the chemistry. I'll say this: I think against man coverage, Pitts and London are not exactly like the craziest separators this game, at least.
No.
But just too many balls where it's like you're not even giving him a chance. And the crazy part is like the one throw he had to London where it's like 1-on-1 like that, boom, throw it. He completed it. It was a horrible underthrow, really, but he completed it because it didn't matter because London is really good,
right?
But almost all of the other ones that he has, it's overthrown and they don't even get a shot at it. It's like, dude, you don't even have to throw a perfect ball, but you can live with, a Pitts 1-on-1, go up and get it. You're not even giving him that chance. And then on top of that, the play action game is just a lot of it, as well as like very limited in the number of routes you're running. Cause they get in like that 12 personnel or like 13 personnel and they'll like really have a bunch of tight ends out there. They'll run the play action. All of those tight ends are blocking. And then it's, like 2 or 3 routes out there. And when, it's like, here's the read, he's open, but you hesitate at all on making that throw, there is nothing else there. There's a check down that's very heavily covered because they're already stacking the box. Mm-hmm. And then, oh my God, if you get behind on downs seriously, and then the Lions do put 2 safeties high, forget about it. It's over.
Yeah, you can't read the defense. Like he threw at least 3 passes directly to the Packers, and it's one of those in zone where he's locking on.
He had another one this
route.
game where it's like miracle that wasn't intercepted, dude. And that's what he's not aggressive, and he's putting the ball in harm's way.
Yeah, he's been Zach Wilson level bad these first 3 games, unfortunately, and yeah, I don't think he was that bad in college. His accuracy was quite bad at Cincinnati. Like
it's not even an accuracy thing.
Yeah. No,
it's the aggressiveness. It's like, okay, if you miss on some throws, but you're at least aggressive and giving your guys shots, you can live with that.
I want him to look like Jordan Love right now. Like right. I want him to look like Jordan Love right now because Jordan Love is making things happen with his legs. You can run the option with him. Like that's been a big part of the Packers offense. They scored on it last week. You should be able to do that. Love, his placement has been bad. He's completing like 50% of his passes. Like he's missing guys badly on a couple of throws per game, but he is being very aggressive. He is reading things out. He is testing tight windows. He knows where to go with the ball. He's not throwing it to dropping linebackers because he didn't see them on the crossing route. Like, yes, the accuracy isn't all there, but the command of the offense is, everyone is bought in. He adds a little bit with his legs that they didn't have with the quarterback before him. Like that's what Ridder should look like, but he has been way worse in every conceivable category of quarterback play.
With the NFL and college football seasons both in full swing, we've got high flying action games in both leagues, but not even just that. We've got high flying events all over the place, and you can enjoy all of that action with Game Time, because buying tickets to your favorite event should not be stressful. Game Time makes it easy and fast to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and even theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you're going to have. Listen, I've been using the Game Time app to find concert tickets, whether that be trying to get to Olivia Rodrigo or trying to get, to see Ohio State games. Here's what people don't realize. With the Olivia Rodrigo tickets, those didn't even debut until the 21st. I was seeing those tickets the day she announced her tour. So you could have been way ahead of the curve and made sure you got your seats to see your favorite musical artist all the time. So go ahead and snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code STAYHOT for $20 off. You're already getting the best price. Now you get $20 off. Doesn't get much better than that. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code STAYHOT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Yeah. I almost wonder if being in an offense, it's like, we just want you to keep him honest, makes him think he needs to be less aggressive. I don't want to blame Arthur Smith for anything outside of not having any backup plan. I guess Heineke. I guess.
Yeah, it was Heineke.
Heineke would be aggressive.
It's very frustrating because I think this team is probably still going to win a good amount of games.
Playoff Ridder is still
undefeated.
Was this an away game? Was this an away game?
Yes, it was.
Yes. Okay.
So we're still alive, but I'm very disappointed because I swear on my life he did not play like this at Cincinnati. He didn't. I know it. You saw that throw he had against Notre Dame over the middle where he throws him open for game was so. I don't know. I remember exactly where I was for it. It was so dope. It won us a game.
He operated a real offense that wasn't like the Matt Corral RPO stuff over and over and over again. Like he could drop back and no. Matt Corral will never complete a pass in the NFL. Like he will.
You don't mean that.
I do mean that. I mean, he will never ever do anything. But Ridder was my favorite because he was operating that offense really. And Pickett, I think Pickett's flaws have shown through. He wasn't standing in the pocket. He wasn't moving around the pocket like Ridder was in college. My only issue with Ridder was really like, man, the accuracy is really quite bad. And if that was the only problem, like it was with Jordan Love right now, it would be a much better offense. But unfortunately, I think that a lot of it is pretty rough with Ridder right now and kind of has been since he entered the lineup, or really since he entered the NFL, even going back to preseason last year. I don't think he's ever really looked like a guy with too much hope, unfortunately, although we have had hope because of his college experience. And he did get a little better as time went on last year, and you thought, well, maybe if he keeps improving. Yeah. But every game he did get better.
He doesn't have that Jalen Hurts gene, I fear.
Well, that's who you watched, Blaiden, was Jalen Hurts.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Just one player I want to. Aleem McNeil, defensive tackle, 54, Lions, baller, great game.
I love Aleem McNeil. I'm glad that he had a good game. He's a tree stump. That guy is a war hog. That guy is probably not giving you, I don't know if he offered much as a pass rusher in the game against the Falcons, but he is just an immovable object.
Now he's more than that, man. I mean, he's run not going his direction, taking his guy and going so far lateral that he gets himself back in the play multiple times that game.
Yes.
Just
he's a tree stump with juice.
Yes, he can definitely, And this is against no slouch of an offensive line for the Atlanta Falcons either. Really great game from him. A lot of stuff in the run game you love to see. Just powerful, moving around, sealing up gaps every time. Like just great stuff. Redirecting guys. Awesome game.
I love Aleem McNeil. I'm glad that he had a good game. If you search Aleem McNeil on my Twitter account from Theo Ash, NFL Aleem McNeil, you will see a post of him just basically punching an offensive lineman and having him go flying, and then he blows up a play like he's just the strongest guy out there.
The Lions have had a lot of decent guys playing, or a lot of guys playing well on defense. Aiden Hutchinson leads the NFL in pressures right now. Him and Max Crosby. Brian Branch had a great game.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they've got a lot of guys balling out right now, and a lot of young guys, which is what you like to see.
They're very banged up on the back end, though. I think it could be over for them if their secondary doesn't get healthier.
This has happened before, where they had almost like a comically banged up cornerback room last year or 2 years ago, where it got down to like the 8th or 9th guy. Yeah. So I hope they get healthy, because I do think they have some backs who can play a little bit. It's just
they do.
Yeah, they've got McNeil. They've got guys right up the gut. I think when you put Aiden Hutchinson over a guard, he can obliterate any guard because they're not as athletic as center. They don't have the length that tackles do. Like, he's pretty much physical. He outclasses them physically in a lot of different ways, guards that he doesn't tackles, and he's strong enough to hold up there. So when they put him inside, and then they've got Aleem McNeil inside, and even when they have Hutchinson outside, he's good at those inside counters, and he's good with his hands.
Yeah.
So they've got some juice up front, but I really worry about the Lions on the back end. Like, are they going to be able to cover anybody come playoffs if they see Hurts and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and those guys? Like, to be a tier 1 contender, you can't be starting the guys that they probably are leaning on in the secondary, as good as Brian Branch has been. But anyway,
speaking
of Hurts, it's honestly good that they had so many nickel corners. That was kind of they spent their entire offseason collecting them. So they're set up well for CJ Gardner-Johnson getting hurt, I guess, but like their safety situation right now.
Yeah. They got a lot of guys there. You hope that you don't lose them all, and you have to get down to that 5th, 6th, 7th guy. But speaking of guys like Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, the big question with everyone's darling Super Bowl team, my blue lights just went off. They go off at sunset for those that are watching and realizing my lights just went off. So now my camera looks weird. But anyway, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl last year. A lot of high expectations coming into this year. Also, big question, was last year kind of a fluke, right? Because they had that really easy schedule, and it felt like if all their games they won, it felt like they won them all by 30, right? This year, not been off to the same start. They play New England. Their offense scores, 16 points. They scrape by against Minnesota, a team that they obliterated last year. And then, they only put up 25 against the Bucks, but they win that game pretty handedly. Like that was kind of all of them for the most part. So was last year a fluke? I say no, still. I think the talent is still too jarring. And my take on both sides of the ball really is kind of the same that it was coming into this year, which is there's going to be some growing pains with new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Right. And I think that's been apparent by just their sheer.
So too.
It feels like
it's been apparent on offense.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I have my concerns with the defense, but it's more just the fact I just don't think they're as talented as they were last year defensively. At least in the secondary, because they got cooked by Minnesota. Like, they got shredded.
But they were injured. I think the Eagles' offense is a bit concerning just because it seems like the growth from Jalen Hurts has stopped or stalled a little bit. It doesn't feel like he has taken any kind of jump from last year where, like, I don't even know what it would look like. Like, he just hung in the pocket and went through reads, like, better than anybody else.
He would have to become Mahomes. Like,
or be that kind of guy out of structure. And
yeah,
he's not quite as creative as Mahomes. He's not quite as elastic and like willing, I think, to hit just crazy throws when he leaves the pocket. And almost no one is like Mahomes in that aspect. So if you're going to leave the pocket so much and not be that, you need, it's a little bit of a question mark or a red flag for quarterback play. And I think it's why you saw like with Steven Ruiz's article and a couple of film Twitter, like sleeping on running, and myself, like ranking Jalen Hurts maybe a little bit lower than consensus after he was second in MVP voting last year. Was he has some issues. It's just that he has the super team around him. I still feel like that's the case with Hurts, but he is good. Like he's super accurate down the field. He's very good running this scheme, like making the throws on the RPOs, like knowing when to hand it off, knowing when to keep it, to keep the offense on track in those moments, and then taking advantage of the wide receivers that he has and like throwing it to him down the field when they're covered and being accurate when doing so. And reading the defense at a very good level, like maybe not sticking in the pocket and reading it out at like the highest of high levels, but at a high level. I think that that's still kind of true with Jalen Hurts. Like, he hasn't regressed in, I think, a major way. Like
he doesn't look like, it's not like he went from standing in the pocket all of a sudden he's like panicking and dropping his head when there's pressure. Like I think he's still getting the ball out with a decent quickness. He clearly still has immense trust in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, which why wouldn't you? They're arguably the best wide receiver duo. Like they're top three probably with Tyreek and Waddle and Jamar and Higgins. So I mean that's the thing, right? The team is just so good that despite growing pains, despite them looking a little bit lackluster these first 3 weeks, they're still 3-0, right? That's the silver lining, is like they're struggling a little bit, but they're undefeated, right? And how many
3-0 against the spread as well?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're covered. They're beating teams by a lot, which is funny because their offense doesn't quite look in sync at this point.
Yeah.
Like, especially their passing offense does not look in sync. Like,
no, I mean the run game is amazing still.
Hurts has regressed statistic. Like he hasn't had a stretch of games this bad. Like he didn't have a stretch of games this bad last year, I would say. So in some ways, I guess that he's regressed, but I feel like the play calling has regressed and he's probably just the same.
Yeah.
Because Steichen is gone. They're just killing it in Indianapolis right now. Like last year when you watched the Eagles, just everything they did worked all the time in the running game and the passing game.
Yeah.
The running game, the offensive line is still moving bodies. It's making things really easy for DeAndre Swift to read things out. I've
got 4 obviously on Twitter up front. Like you're gonna
right. I obviously, I think with what I've said on Twitter, I think Swift is still the same player he was in Detroit. I think if you can constrict the space, like Swift can make bad decisions and you can tackle him in the backfield, or he could be unreliable. But it's like it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter. And everything in that Eagles run game, it's like all zone read or power read, right? Like if Jalen Hurts doesn't like what he sees, he's probably not giving it to Swift anyway. So
right.
Like he'll
and
just
Swift can pass protect, and Swift can receive out of the backfield, and Swift is talented in the open field. So if you blow open a hole like that, like he can do good things. So it's an ideal situation for really any running back, and any running back would hit their ceiling in this place. Yeah. And that's still true, and that's really what saved them over these past couple games is the run. They can just. The sequencing doesn't matter. The running back, like, I don't think the running back matters, whether it be
DeAndre Swift. Like.
Right. They can just mash you, and they couldn't mash the Patriots, and that's why they didn't score many points against the Patriots, and that's I think why DeAndre Swift probably didn't play much against the Patriots. It's because that would have constricted the front, and it's like that's not where I want him playing. Yeah.
Christian Barmore has had a pretty good start to the year.
Everyone on the Patriots front is, I don't know if Barmore's had a good year or not. To me, he doesn't really seem more impressive than anyone else on that front.
I just know that I was looking at like pressures, and I think he had like Yeah, he has 11 pressures so far this year.
So far, Belichick is having a good start to the year with the Patriots. I would say more than any of the players for the like to do what they did versus the Dolphins and to actually slow them down. Like that's not a Barmore thing or an anyone thing. That's like a Belichick thing.
Yeah, it's a Belichick thing. Gonzalez played great too, but like, yeah.
Gonzalez has been fantastic. Everyone on the defense is good. I mean, listen to Wednesday Night Football. We talk about Patriots, Jets. There's a lot of Belichick and Patriots talk on there.
Yeah. But I mean, I think if we're comparing just like metrics from the Eagles last year to this year, last year at this point, they were ranked 4th in total offensive EPA, 5th in passing, 11th in rushing. This year, they are 11th in total offensive EPA, 19th in passing, and 2nd in rushing. Which, like, based on what we just talked about, that makes a lot of sense. They've been really great running the ball, but they played the Patriots week 1. And then Tampa's not bad defensively. Like, as much as we rag on their offense, the Bucs still have guys that can play for them on defense. So it's not shocking that they're just not. And again, with the new play caller, it's not shocking that the passing offense isn't just lighting people up this year.
I mean, we're 3 games into the season, but the Eagles put up the most points that any team has put up on the Patriots, the Bucs, and the Vikings.
They're a super team. They point blank period. I think that there's been clearly like last year they were just clearly kicking everybody's ass.
Yes.
And they looked like the Dolphins do right now.
Everything lined up. Everything lined up perfectly.
How could you even stop this team? And I don't think that's quite what it looks like so far. And yet still they're covering the spread every single week. So if they can kind of get fully operational and maybe put up 35 on a team, 40 on it just once, and we can start to see the same sort of sequencing and the same sort of like greased up gears turn in type offense that we saw last year. Because the defense, like Carter and Davis, the defensive tackles,
the defensive line has been nice.
The defensive line is almost even better than it was last year.
The defensive line is nice. My only concern is when they play Miami, they have to score 40. They have to score 40 that game.
Eventually, when they play the elite teams in the playoffs, their offense will probably have to click a little bit more than it is right now versus the Buccaneers, the Vikings, and Mac Jones and the Patriots.
And you would imagine that it will, right? Again, we're 3 games in with a new offensive coordinator, and I mean the offense. It's a great offensive line. They have maybe the best receiving duo in football, and they have a very, very good quarterback. There is basically no world in which they just don't figure it out.
I don't know. I almost feel like we're talking about them like a college team. This isn't college, You play teams and they're going to play you close and tough. I mean, last year, the Eagles' point differential wasn't the best in the league. It wasn't even close. It was 3rd. And right now, as it stands, their point differential is very much on pace for what it was last year. Yeah. And they played close games against. I mean, they played a close game against the Colts, didn't they? Maybe Hurts was out for that game, but I don't think so. They beat them by 1, and at that point, the Colts were disaster mode entirely. So there's some concerns to have with them, but as it stands right now, the results are great. They're 3-0 against the spread. Rock on.
They are. I'm not that concerned about them. I don't think they look as good as the 49ers offense right now.
No,
I wouldn't put them in the tier 1 of offenses like they were last year so far this season. And it does, again, they're still beating teams. I don't want to say the Eagles are actually bad, but as far as offenses go, they have taken a step back from last year, in my opinion. That doesn't mean it'll stay that way.
I think if I were to power rank them, they're in the top 5 still, but I don't know if they're in the top 3.
I would have Kansas City over them.
Yes.
I would have San Francisco over them.
Yes.
At this point, if they played Miami, I think I'd favor Miami.
I'm kind of in the same boat. But I think I have them at 4 right now, and then I would have Dallas and Buffalo
Yeah, Buffalo has beat the crap out of two teams.
So like those, like if Dallas didn't look the way they did last week against Arizona, I'd probably still have Dallas above them. But
well,
right.
However,
they lost to the Cardinals.
That did happen.
But yeah, Eagles still good. Just, you know, if you're a little like head scratching, it's okay. It's understandable. But they're still very, very good, and I'm pretty confident they'll still win their division. And I probably come playoff time, I will probably still lean picking them to come out of the NFC, just because got to rock with my guys. But I think it's about high time we get into our weekly Stay Hot Locks competition. Theo.
Let's do it. The Stay Hot Locks they're a little bit like a parlay in that we all pick teams. We can add as many legs as we want. And if they all win, we get all the points. And if one of them loses, we get 0 points. We cannot pick the same team. That's something we used to do, but we figured it was more interesting to do it draft style. So we'll just have a little draft of all the games happening this week and see who can pick the most winners, basically. And this segment of the show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy, you can make a lot of picks as well. I'm looking at Thursday Night Football right now. Jared Goff, over under 17 fantasy points. I'm going under. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 13 fantasy points. I'm going under. Jordan Love, 17.3. I'm going over. It's not just fantasy points, yards, touchdowns, receptions. If you feel like anything is a lock, you can bet on it over on Underdog Fantasy. So go check that app out. It's a great app, and they've got the Stay Hot promo code that is just Stay Hot with no spaces. Stay Hot.
Hey.
This is not the ad, but
well,
I'm just realizing that I read the ad later too. But it's sponsored by Underdog, and you can still use the code Stay Hot and get double your deposit, which I'm sure you'll hear at another point in this episode. But anyway, that's how the Stay Hot locks work, and they're presented by Underdog.
You know, we have not had great success the past couple of weeks on the locks.
This is not betting advice. It's like a parlay, but do not build these parlays because they tend to not work out.
You are still not on the board. I still have 2. Matt, you still have 1. And so I guess that means I get the first pick again, which I was prepared to not have it because I thought Theo, you were finally gonna.
I picked the Cowboys before Trayvon Diggs got injured.
Right. I picked the Browns last week before Nick Chubb got injured. It happens. But I have the first pick here with the Stay Hot Locks. Got a couple of good options on the board here.
It's a tough week overall.
But there's a couple of glaring ones that I think are reasonable to choose. And I think I'm going to start with taking the 49ers over the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals are on a hot streak. They're 1-0 right now, man. But give me the 49ers. They are, I think, better than the Cowboys. So
I think so too.
And they're healthier.
I truly would not have locked the Cowboys post Diggs injury.
I think like, okay, if the Niners were to lose Nick Bosa, right? Like, or Fred Warner, I would probably still feel pretty good. They have so many stars. It would be tough.
This defense I think is better than the Cowboys defense, definitely without Diggs. Like the Cardinals probably won't be able to sustain the same success, and their scheme I think is harder to defend than the Cowboys. Like it's just a more mental energy.
Yeah.
I think
there's so much going on.
The 49ers are better than the Cowboys, which is not a hot take because the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals, but yeah.
So if the 49ers lose to the Cardinals, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. So, Matt, I believe you are up.
Mm-hmm.
And Theo
I'm going to go with the
turn.
Chiefs over the Jets.
Yep.
You know, Jets have a good defense, can stand a lot of games, but I don't really trust Zach Wilson to do anything against a pretty good Chiefs defense. And Zach Wilson getting a win over Mahomes would be pretty crazy. So I'm going with
That
KC.
would be pretty crazy.
That would be extremely crazy. I am going to go with the...
Yeah, we made it hard.
Seahawks.
On
I'm going to go with the Seahawks over the Giants.
Okay.
I really have not been impressed with the Giants at all, and I think that they could be contending for a top pick at the end of this year. I'm not moved by the talent on any side of the ball. It doesn't look like they have the same answers or easy buttons to press, or maybe just plain old luck that the offense had last year. I think the flaws of Daniel Jones are really getting exposed. The flaws of the offensive line are really getting exposed. The flaws of the receivers are really getting exposed. And then the defense just looks like a mess and doesn't have much talent either. Like, whatever this team had clicking for them last year just does not seem to be there right now. And if that is not true, and if they're not systematically picking teams apart with the scheme, like, they're as untalented as anyone. And I think the Seahawks are playing well right now. They obviously dropped a tough one week 1 versus the Rams, where they got blown out, but they always lose to the Rams. All right. McVay owns Pete Carroll. These last 2 weeks, the offense has looked great. So I think they'll be able to put up points on the Giants that the Giants can't quite come back from. And then on the swing, I will take the Eagles, even though they are not a tier 1 offense.
Yeah, I figured I would lose. I was hoping they would come back around to me, but no.
No, the Eagles. Sam Howell is a guy who is too much of a stare down artist. He'll pick one route, usually the deepest route. He's aggressive. I'll give him that, but he'll just watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it. And that flew against a defense that gave up 70 the next week. He was able to get away with doing that. The Bills' defense is a little bit more stingy, and obviously he had a terrible game, which I think is something that you can expect from the Eagles' defense as well. They'll probably press more easy buttons, try to get the ball out a little bit quicker, go after these corners. But will they beat the Eagles? Like you said, Matt, the Eagles have covered the spread every week, and the Commanders, even though they won last year, I don't think they're pulling it out.
Yeah,
I don't disagree.
So Matt, you're back up.
Considering taking the Vikings over the Panthers, but I won't do that. Seriously, dude. I mean,
what quarterback is playing?
Probably Bryce.
I'd take the Vikings.
Would you take him if it was Andy?
No.
Oh.
Maybe something's wrong with you, buddy.
Watch the games. I saw what I saw.
Big jerk, possibly. Also, Frankie Louvu is out, and Xavier Woods is out, and J.C. Horn is out, and Shaq Thompson is out.
I'll take him if you don't. Is what I'm hearing.
All right, I'll take the Vikings then, just for the sake of seeing what people say under that graphic, dude.
It'll be a emotional hedge at the very least.
There you go.
Emotional hedge.
Come on, Bryce.
Either you're right or you win.
Or my boys get the dub. Okay,
right, so
I can't lose.
You can't lose. So Theo took the Eagles. See,
there's one more game I'm gonna lock that no one else is gonna lock. I think.
Can I predict it?
Go ahead.
Are you locking the Packers, buddy?
No, I'm not locking the Packers. I'm not locking the Packers.
No, he's not locking the Packers.
I want to see what Blaiden says.
I know what he's gonna lock, but he's not gonna pick the one I'm gonna pick. I'm going to pick the Cleveland Browns over the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh.
The Ravens are banged up. The Browns are playing at historical defense, a historical defensive level. They have the number 1 defense in the NFL by literally every single metric. Myles Garrett is scorched earth. The rest of the defense is playing out of their mind. Grant Delpit is having a career year.
Where was this against the Steelers, man?
What?
Where was all this against the Steelers?
I locked them against the Steelers.
I know.
And they lost because the offense didn't come through. But the Ravens' defense is not as good as the Steelers' defense, I would say, at the current moment, in its current state.
I would say that's true.
I would say
I worry a
that's
bit
true.
about Watson against all these crazy rotations.
Listen,
I
always worry about Watson. I do. But he looked a little smoother last week. I'm gonna trust in Stefanski. I'm gonna trust in Jerome Ford. We're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done.
Look at the Jerome Ford efficiency.
Why did Jerome Ford? Why was Pierre Strong the rushing leader last week with 6 carries for 27 yards?
Because he got put in garbage time.
Yes, dude. No, dude, it's a garbage time, dude.
Well, I'm saying, like, did they just not run the ball
looking
at all
at this?
week?
Okay, this guy just cares about numbers.
Apparently,
Bro's a box score watcher.
a hit.
Do
I am
not
box
watch
score
the
watching
Ivan
right
Pace
now.
tape when it's a run up the middle and the guards come out. Do not watch any Falcons games and do not watch Jerome Ford rushing.
I was just wondering about the 10 carries for 18 yards thing.
Not his fault,
Not his
obviously.
fault.
Okay,
You're right, Matt.
okay.
You're right. It's not his fault.
Not his fault. Okay. But you're locking, that being said, you're locking the.
I am locking the Cleveland Browns. I think
Good.
I know who you're going to lock. Theo, Matt, do you have any others?
Oh man, I wish I could guess which one it was going to. I would take it, even though I don't think you should pick 3. You go ahead, Theo.
Can I guess?
Go ahead. Guess who I'm going to
Is it Jacksonville?
No, I'm going to lock. I'm going to lock Denver against the Bears because I think the Bears
I
are that
literally
bad.
thought about doing that. I think it's such a good bit.
The Bears, I think, are that bad. Like,
This
the Broncos have one
is an
thing.
all-timer, dude. It's the Bears like instantly collapsing versus the 70-point giving up Broncos. This is awesome.
It's truly a historic mid-off, or not even a mid. It's a historic dumpster fire off. But I think the Broncos can win because I'm like, there is one thing that I think the Broncos are good at, and that's blocking the run with Ben Powers and Quinn Miners and Mike McGlinchey. And they got humiliated last week. And I think that they're capable of playing better. And I think against the Bears, the game is not going to get away from them the same way. I think they are going to be able to like exploit this defensive line as every team is going to be able to, and at least pound the rock. And maybe the Bears can do the exact same thing. Like Fields could have a game where he rushes for a ton of yards against this defense, no doubt.
He's not getting away from Jonathan Cooper, I fear.
But I think this will be a game where the Broncos can really pound the rock between the tackles, play action off of it, hit some deep shots with Russ. Like they won't have to play from behind. They're built to beat you like that. I have to think they're a little bit more competent than the Bears deep down. So I'm actually locking the Broncos because I think the Bears are the worst team in the league, and the Broncos are very bad, but not as bad. So I'm gonna lock Denver.
Hey,
Hell yeah, brother.
And I'm also gonna lock the Chargers because I think the Raiders suck.
oh my God.
So I'm going with 4.
Matt, did we not talk last episode about how it's like bad math to pick more
Theo,
than
did we not talk about this? What are you doing?
Theo was not paying attention during class.
I picked 6 teams 2 weeks ago, and I hit 5 of them.
And yet, how many points did you get?
Well, 0. This time I just need to hit 4, and we've seen that I can hit 5. 6 is too many, is what I've come to learn.
Okay,
but yeah, I'm feeling good about Eagles, Broncos, Chargers, Seahawks. Let's roll.
let's do it, man.
All right, man. Scheduling the tweet. Stay hot locks. Matt has Jets, Vikings. Theo trying to get on the board, taking Seahawks, Eagles, Broncos, Chargers. And then I'm taking the Niners and the Browns.
If you missed this because you locked the winless Broncos, that would be awesome.
It would be.
That's what I'm rooting for.
I don't know which. I'm probably the most worried about the Chargers selling.
Yeah, Theo's hoping the Chargers lose so he can come on here and
betting
and
his life on Justin Herbert here.
I can't wait to see what kind of non-Justin Herbert things go wrong if they lose to the Raiders.
There are 21
it's
other
really not
positions.
His fault, though. Like, it's not his fault.
He is the last quarterback without a turnover this season.
I thought, Stroud doesn't have an interception, so.
Yes. Yes, Justin Herbert has not turned the football over even once.
Hey, because he's just so good.
Rodgers.
But
Rodgers gets partial credit for all of Zach Wilson's turnovers.
Nah, you got to clip that.
I thought he mentored Zach.
He mentored.
Yeah, that's very true.
So he's turned the football over once through bad advice.
He turned the football over the one time when he turned it over to Zach Wilson. That's when he turned it over. But these are Stay Hot Locks, and I think that pretty much wraps things up for another glorious episode of Stay Hot. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute blast. And until next time, we will catch you on the flippity flop.